Good morning, mathematicians. Welcome to week 17. We're looking at what they call number one says, solve the following using partial products. Now, when we think about partial products, and we talked about this yesterday, well, last week, I should say, what we noticed is that we were going to think about the 300 and the 70 and the 2, each of these being multiplied by the 50 and the 6, right? We separated all of those into their own parentheses to make them each their own term. So right now I have the 300 times the 50, but now I'm going to do the 300 times the 6. And in this way, I have the 56, the 50 and the 6 times the 300. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but not with the 300, with the 70. So I'm going to have the 70 times the 50, and I'm going to have the 70 times the 6. Now let me scooch my Post-it note just a little bit closer. When we did this last, I said I really like to have it all be in one line. That helps me keep it nice and organized and together. So that's why I'm using a little Post-it note so that I can make all of those terms be side by side. So I've taken care of the 300 and the 70. Now I'm going to do the 2. So I'm going to do 2 times 50, and I'm going to do 2 times 6, right? So we've taken care of all of these values, the 300, the 70, and the 2, and we've multiplied each of those by 50 and also by 6. So now we're ready to solve each of those terms. So we have 3 times 5 is 15, and then there are 3 zeros outside the base fact. We're going to add that to 300 times 6, which is an 18, and 2 zeros. So we have 1,800. Now we have 7 times 5, which is 35, and there are 2 zeros outside the basic fact. Here we have 7 times 6, which is 42, and there's 1 zero outside the basic fact. 2 times 50, of course, is 100, and 2 times 6 is 12. There's a lot of numbers here to add together, aren't there? I'm going to utilize my handy dandy Post-it note, and I'm going to have one, two, three, four, five, six items that I'm adding together. I do want you to notice how I'm being very careful to keep everything nice and lined up so that all my place values are very clearly being added. If you're someone who maybe writing is a little bit messy, or maybe you just found that you fall into that common error of adding different values, you might want to even draw some lines to show yourself and give yourself that partition between the values. So here we have a 2 in the ones place. Here we're going to have a 3 in the tens place. We have 5 plus 4 plus 1 is a 10. Add 8 more, we have 18. So here's my 8, carry my 1. 3 plus 1, of course, is 10. Or excuse me, it's 5. But 5 more than that is 10. So here is my 0, carry my 1. And 1 plus 1 is 2. 1, 2, 3, comma. So I do have an answer here of 20,832, right? That is this question. I'm going to go ahead and write that here to the side. But make sure, if you're using a piece of paper to do your work, make sure you also turn that in too, so that in this case, we would be able to see on the Post-it note all of the work that I did for my partial products question. All right, let's go to the next one. The incredible silk has 4 feet of silk to make a bow. Each bow takes 1/3 feet of silk to make. How many bows can he make? Well, what is he using, breaking up to make the bows? He is using 4 feet of silk, right? So I'm going to imagine 1 foot here, my second foot here, my third foot here, and my fourth foot here, right? Now, each of these feet of silk, obviously, is going to be broken up in order to make bows, and it's going to be broken up into 3 pieces because look, we're going to have 1 bow here, 2 bows here, 3 bows here. But we're going to do the same thing here and here and here. So each of these is really going to give us three bows because look, this foot of silk is going to give us three bows, three bows, three bows, three bows. Well, we know that 3 times 4 equals 12. So our answer here is that we will have 12 bows. Okay, our next question is looking at some multiplication, but we're looking at standard rhythm here. So let's get started over here. I noticed a three-digit number on the top and a two-digit number on the bottom. I'm going to start with my ones place on the bottom factor, and I'm going to let that kind of be my pivot point, right? So we have 8 times 5, which is 40. Here is my 0, carry my 4. 8 times 3, which is 24, plus 4 more is 28. Here is my 8, carry my 2. Then I have 8 times 6, which is 48, plus 2 more, which is 50. Now notice I'm giving her it really small to make sure that I am keeping everything nice and tidy. If that is a struggle for you, feel free to write it larger to the side. We don't want to make careless errors simply because our work is not tidy, right? Well, I'm going to cross off my 8. I'm going to cross off everything that is carried. I'm going to remind myself that I have to have a placeholder 0 here because the 2 is really sitting in the tens place, right? So now I have 2 times 5, which is 10. Here's my 0, carry my 1. 2 times 3, which is 6, plus 1 more is 7. And 2 times 6, which is 12. I am going to add these up. 0 plus 0 is 0. 8 plus 0 is 8. 0 plus 7 is 7. 2 plus 5 is 7. And 1 plus nothing is 1. 1, 2, 3, comma. So our answer to this question is 17,780. All right, we're going to get started with our next one. And as I said, do not squish your work together where you're going to be more prone to errors. Sometimes it's worth it to write it out where you can work a little bigger without having to worry about keeping those numbers so tiny. So you don't want squished work to lead to careless errors. So I'm going to do it on this post-it note. You could do it on the back of your paper or a piece of line paper if you prefer, as opposed to kind of those tiny boxes, especially this one. Because how many partial products will we have to add together? We will have three partial products, right? So this is a great opportunity to think about those three partial products, as well as thinking about how many zero placeholders we need. Do we need any zero placeholders when we're working with 8 as the center of our problem? Nope, we do not. Will we need a zero placeholder here? Yes, we'll need one zero placeholder here. What about when we go over here? Yes, we will need zero placeholders. In fact, we will need 2 because we're skipping 2 digits. We get started with 2, which is in the hundred place. So this is a great opportunity to think about that. All right, let's jump in. Right now, we are ignoring the 2 and the 1. We're simply thinking about 3,247 times 8, right? So we have 7 times 8, which is 56. Here's my 7, carry a 5. Now I have 8 times 4, which is 32, plus 5 more is 37. Here is my 7, carry a 3. Now I have 8 times 2, which is 16, 17, 18, 19. So I have 19. Here's my 9 and carry a 1. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 1 more is 25. So I have finished my 8 as the center of the problem. Also remember to cross off what's carried so we don't make those careless errors. We're going to move on to the 1 as our new center point. But remember, the 1 is in the 10 place, which is why we use our 0 placeholders, because we're skipping this 8, right? That is why we require that 1 0 placeholder. Now, speaking of 1, we are really multiplying 3,247 times 1. Well, we know that anything times 1 equals itself, including 3,247. So I went ahead and just rewrote that number down below because we know that it will be exactly the same thing when it's being multiplied by 1. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to cross off this 1 and we're going to move on to the 2. Now the 2 is in what place value position? The 2 is in the hundred place. So my answer must start here, which is why we use 2 0 placeholders. I'm skipping the 10, I'm skipping the 1, I'm multiplying with the hundred digit. So my answer starts in the 100, right? Now we're going to multiply by 2. We have 2 times 7 is 14. Here is my 4, carry a 1. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 more is 9. 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 times 3 is 6. We have the correct 3 partial products. Check and see if all of your partial products are exactly the same. Because if not, you can really pinpoint where your error happened, right? And as mathematicians, we want to be able to put our finger and say, this is the moment that our problem solving went wrong. So use this as an opportunity to do that and scan your partial products. If you get all of this right, but you find that you get a different answer down below, you know you made an adding error, right? Because that's all we have left to do. 6 plus 0 is 6. 7 plus 7 is 14. Here's my 4. Carry a 1. 9 plus 1 is 10. Plus 8 more is 18. Here's my 8. Carry a 1. 9 plus 1 makes a 10. Plus 5 plus 2 is 17. Here is my 7. Carry a 1. Now I have 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, which is 10. So here's my 0, carry a 1, and 1 plus 6 is 7. 1, 2, 3, comma. So my answer to this question is 707,846. We have our answer to this question. Now, as I have said, if you do your work on a separate, I'm working on my craft table here. If you do your work on a separate piece of paper, make sure you turn in that paper as well. Make sure you turn in that paper as well because we want to see the work that you do, right? So I'm going to stick this right here so that it will get turned in with my work because now I'm ready to go down and think about partial products and the area model methods when it comes to 361 times 8, right? So I see that I have 3 columns. So I know I'm going to take 361 and break it into expanded form. And each of those parts is going to be multiplied by 8. So I have 8 times 3 is 24. And then there are 2 zeros outside the basic fact. 8 times 6 is 48. And there's 1 0 outside the basic fact. And 8 times 1 is 8. When I have 2,400, 480 and 8, and I add these together, what do I end up with? 2,888, right? That's what we get with this area model. Now let's take a look down below and let's look at partial products. So really, we thought about 8 times the parts of 361. So we had 360 and 1, right? Now we're going to list down below those as terms. So we did our 8 times 300, which we found to be 2,400, right? Right here was that moment. Then we did our 8 times 60, which we found to be 480. Then we did our 8 times 1, which we found to be exactly 8. And when we added those 3 numbers together, we got 2,888 as our answer. One last question for today. We're going to complete the area model below, and this time we're looking at a 2-digit factor, 63, times a 2-digit factor, 45. I have 4 times 6, which is 24, and there are 2 zeros outside the basic fact. I have 4 times 3, which is 12, and there's 1 0 outside the basic fact. I have 3 times 6, or excuse me, 5 times 6, which is 30, and then there's 1 0 outside the basic fact. And I have 5 times 3, which is 15. I know that in this row, I have 2,520. I know that in this row, I have 315. When I can, I like to add them in rows because then look, it's already set up for me to add these 2 partial products together. 0 plus 5 is 5, 2 plus 1 is 3, 5 plus 3 is 8, and 2 plus nothing is 2. So my answer here is 2,835.